a conversation between Politics Done Right and Latino Rebel. Is it Latino Rebel on Substack, or what is it on Substack?
No, it's decolonized journalism.
That's right. You know what is so funny? I subscribe to Decolonize. I'm a paid subscriber to Decolonize journalists, and I can't remember the name. I'm getting old, Arturo. I'm getting old. What can I say?
Well, I did spend. I'm good. I did spend a lot of time working at Latino Rebels, but yeah. So
yeah, I can't put picture on how to on what you're on any given day. But anyway, one of the things there are two reasons I wanted to have this discussion. The first one, of course, is this is the first time that I'm testing out the actual mobile version of the live. But secondly, I wanted to hear your opinion as far as the coverage for the Luigi Mangione. I'm not going to call it. I'm going to call it the issue, the act. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I never advocate for murder or anything like that, or people's death or anything, and I don't celebrate it. I do understand the apathy and the anger. You know my situation, right? I survived a stroke. We lost everything due to hundreds of thousands of dollars in hospital bills. I'm a pretty angry individual when it comes to our healthcare system, especially considering that, here we are 10 years later and I'm still struggling with my health and stuff. But the media coverage has been really one-sided, right? So, they're admonishing a lot of people for elevating Mangione to like a folk hero type of status. And I don't think they talk about the tens of thousands of people who die every year due to being denied healthcare enough, right? So while, Brian Thompson's murder is pretty horrifying. I think what's more horrifying is that tens of thousands of people die every year due to a lack of health care or being denied coverage by insurance that you pay for. So, I get why he's been elevated to folk hero status. When you look at Congress in particular, Elizabeth Warren and Josh Hawley, right? Two people who couldn't be any more different, introduced a bill, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, to require insurance companies to stop controlling like people's prescriptions. What is it called? I got it pulled up here. The PBMs, right? Pharmacy benefit managers.
The guys who control the drug distribution to pharmacies.
Right. So essentially the bill is going to require health insurance companies to be one or the other. So within 3 years, you can either be pharmacy benefit manager or health insurance provider, but you can't be both. And, did Mangione lead to this? I think so, because not what he did, but the outcry that occurred after what he did is what led to
extinction. I am so glad because, again, when we look at the Mangione story, we see that Mangione is a wealthy guy, went to wealthy schools. In reality, from a technical standpoint, whether he has insurance or not, I don't even know if that matters because, again, he comes from a wealthy upbringing. But that doesn't mean that is his actions. We don't know. We can't know what was the reasons for his actions, but the actions itself awoken people to, wow, somebody fought the guy. Maybe I can too.
Yeah. Right. Maybe not that extreme what Mangione did, but there's certainly this element of, we can fight back.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, Mangione came from privilege, from wealth, and his motivations, it's starting to sound like it had a lot to do with his own health, back surgeries, his mom's health, and a lot of anger there. But, it's a pretty nonpartisan issue, right? This is a class issue, and that's what it's become. And I think that the media is having a hard time grasping that concept that, while they're admonishing people for, celebrating Mangione in a sense, and I wouldn't even call it celebrating because I don't know that anybody's really celebrating him like that. But um, for the folk hero status, at least, that's what they're admonishing people for. I think that, when you see that even right wingers, even MAGA, even far right people, Ben Shapiro, who's on the far right, we all know, he spoke out against it, against this folk hero elevation of Mangione. And his viewers went after him for
And
that.
MAGA viewers at that, yeah. It wasn't
Right,
even
right,
progressives coming in to kind of take over his shot. It was his own folks. And it's like, guy, where are you?
right. And, that was really, really telling. Pretty much across the board, you see a lot of people, on the right, you see a lot of people are not, trying to celebrate the death. And, like I said, I don't know that anybody really is. But, on the right, you see people having the same issue because, again, this is a class issue. This is corporate America taking advantage of the population, and people are getting sick of it. Mangione was sick of it to a certain extreme. And other people are sick of it to maybe not as extreme, but pretty close. And that's what leads to people like Elizabeth Warren and Josh Hawley, again, who couldn't be further apart on issues, to introduce a bill together to try to break up some of this control that insurance companies have. Because, you can't say they're a monopoly, but you can certainly call them oligopolies, right? Where, it's essentially a handful of companies agree on policies and how they're going to handle insurance and how much they're going to charge and, all these things. And it's just gotten to the point where, you pay so much in premiums, then you have to pay so much in deductibles. And like when I had insurance, when I first had the stroke, my prescriptions, if I paid cash for a lot of them, almost all of them, were cheaper if I paid cash than than the copay was. And
Wow.
that to me tells me everything. I saved $200 by using a discount card and paying cash as opposed to filing it on my insurance. And, a lot of my medications are extremely expensive for, being a stroke survivor. So, even now I don't have insurance. I don't have Medicaid. I don't have anything like that. I have to pay cash for everything. And, with discount cards and things like that, and my pharmacist is really good. They try to find me the best prices. And I hate to praise HEB all the time, but in Texas, we love our HEB.
They are a good company.
Right.
There are not a lot of companies out there that really try to put their money where their propaganda is. And I've really found HEB both in the people that they hire, in what they enforce as far as people having to treat other people well. Kudos to HEB. So you have my vote on that as well. But, I want to kind of migrate a bit because this morning on my KPFT 90.1 FM radio show, and by the way, I want you on my program a few times before the year ends because there's a whole lot that we need to talk about. So I really want us to have, I'll talk about when we can do some sort of a pre-record for it because we're going to be going in hiatus, and I want to have your voice out there. But we were talking about, you mentioned about the people feeling sick of the corporations doing this and the media not knowing how to handle it. My big question to you is, and I'm going to phrase it along with Gaza. Neither one of us want dead Palestinians or dead Israelis, but the way the media covers the 1,200 Israelis that were murdered compared to the 44,000 Palestinians is off kilter altogether. It's as if the Palestinians' life has no value. And I feel the same way. And tell me if you agree. with the way we handle, let's say, the media's handling of the people who react to Mangione in a certain way, while they have not reacted to the hundreds of thousands of people killed by insurance companies because of neglect. It behooves me that they don't see the similarities.
Right, and then that's the inherent bias in Western news in general, but U.S. media even more particular. When it comes to Palestinians, at the I always go back to this because it drives me nuts. At the onset of the war in Ukraine, you had Charlie Daggett from CBS News over there. There was a lot of journalists that did this, talking about how Ukrainian refugees who were fleeing Ukraine and going into Europe and coming here, how they were blonde hair, blue eyes, they look like you and me, he said.
Mm-hmm.
They are civilized, and he said, unlike the children in the Middle East.
Right.
And that exposed the inherent bias in our media, the racism in our media, the bigotry in our media. When it comes to the Israel-Palestine conflict, that's where that comes from.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, when people speak out about Israel and Zionism, it's not because they want Jews out of the Middle East. There has always been Palestinian Jews, always. This isn't about Jews, right? This is about Zionism. This is about white supremacy. This is about targeting brown people and things like that. Then when you come back to the healthcare system, there's not much difference there, right? It's the people who suffer the most are the poor and marginalized, right? Poor white people, black people, brown people, Latinos, you name it. You can't tell me, because we see this when we try to submit our resumes and apply for jobs, right? If you have a name like mine that ends with a Z, it's Latino. A lot of times my resume gets tossed aside. People don't even know what I look like, but they're going to toss it aside because my name's not James something or another. And that's the same thing, right? So there's this corporate lean, this lean to imperialism and colonization and suppression and oppression, because when they're trying to admonish people for elevating Mangione to folk hero status, that's what that is. They're trying to suppress our voice, right? And the only reason anyone elevates him to that status is because everyone has had to deal with the healthcare system in this country. That is one thing all 400 million of us have had to deal with. We all have that in common. So it's essentially all the same. This is why I took up journalism after having a stroke and couldn't be a government contractor anymore, because you see this bias in the media constantly. With Mangione, you see police leaking information that a lot of it is rumor, but they're essentially trying to convict him before he has his day in court. This is the same thing they do to black people, same thing they do to Latinos. We see it in Houston. You're from here, the Harding Street raid,
Mm-hmm.
right? They killed 2 white people. Immediately, the police union was out there. The police department was out there, and they were admonishing Black Lives Matter protesters. They were demonizing the black community for speaking up against police brutality. And then it turns out later that the raid was a fraudulent raid. They lied to get the warrant. They killed 2 white people and their dog. And now the police union is nowhere to be found. Nobody apologized. Then a report came out that I covered over the summer about Art Acevedo when he was chief here, telling the cops to turn their body cams off after the incident, because it was recording what they were saying, and they were essentially saying, "Damn, we screwed up." And he was like, "Turn your camera off. We don't need that. That's evidence against this type situation." So while everybody praised Art Acevedo when he was here, he turned out to be just as crooked as the previous chief and the cops who did the raid and all that stuff. And the media doesn't cover that. So there's this huge slant, towards law enforcement. I just wrote a story, came out this morning, about, almost 24 cops were sent to Pennsylvania. They drove 80 miles an hour for 300 miles. One of them was carrying a long rifle in the police station, and they were there to quote unquote confront Mangione. Why are you sending? I mean, 2 detectives could have done this. How
Right.
much did that cost New York taxpayers? Lights and sirens on. How many people did they inconvenience on their 300-mile journey? Like, is that necessary? Again, media won't cover that. Fox News covered it, but they didn't realize what they were doing was exposing how wasteful police departments are.
Exactly.
And all of this is the same. All of this comes back to the same.
They can't afford to invest in healthcare. They can't, but they can afford all these macho law enforcement kind of a thing. Well, let me tell you, Arturo, I want to talk a little bit more about some of this with regards to the healthcare on our, I want to get us a 15-minute segment to play on KPFT. So offline, we'll kind of arrange something so that we can go through that. But in the interim, I want to thank you so kindly for speaking to me in an impromptu fashion, with me just asking to speak to you about this issue, because I think while the mainstream media isn't going to cover this story in the proper context, I think it's on you, it's on all of us that are doing independent media to do so. So I always try to give a plug on things like when we're doing this, and my plug is going to be, folks, we do the work that many on the mainstream media fails to do. We complement, and in fact, many times we have to take the lead. So please remember to subscribe to Decolonize. Give me the full name.
Decolonize Journalism.
Decolonize Journalism, and of course, Egberto Off the Record. But right now, my brother, thank you so kindly for spending this time with me. And you have a wonderful rest of your day. And to those who listened, thank you so kindly. Please remember to share. Welcome aboard, my good friends. You're with Marlon Weems of the Journeyman, and of course, Egberto Willies of the Record. How are you doing today, Marlon?
I'm doing great. Had a good holiday. 2 of my kids are with us now until after New Year's. So yeah, it's all good. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing just fine, man. I'm doing just fine. Just like you, you know what we have a tendency to do, and that is overeat on the Christmas dinner. But you know what, man? I don't mind, because I am just not going to weigh myself until the new year.
Yeah. I might wait a little bit longer than that, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Well, when I said the new year, I wasn't speaking the beginning of the new year now. I was speaking about when I figured that I'm not weighing as much as I think I've added in the poundage from all that eating on Christmas.
When you get back to your baseline weight.
Exactly. But it's interesting. Last time we spoke a lot about Kamala Harris and how it went, why she lost, etc. And Trump, a lot of our MAGA brothers and sisters thought that it was going to be a great thing. They got their Führer elected, and it was going to be a good thing. The MAGA man is there. The man isn't even in power yet. And the first thing he goes to get, one of the first thing he does is he seems like he wants to invade the country of my birth, Panama. He wants to annex Canada to become a state, and he wants to
just take over Greenland, I guess.
And he wants to just take over Greenland. What's that all about?
He's crazy. He's crazy. That's all. I mean, this guy, hold on just a second. Alexa, turn off. My Alexa just starts talking whenever, just wants to get involved. I mean,
I know the feeling. I know the feeling.
This guy is, I saw a report today, and what really is bothering me, and the media addresses these things as if it's just totally normal. I saw, someone I think it was Debbie Wasserman Schultz was talking to a young lady on CNN, and
Mhm.
the anchor is saying something like, you know, do you think do you think this might actually help diplomacy? And I'm like, this ain't no diplomacy. This is just Trump just fever dream saying stuff, and the reporter that they went to after was again trying to rationalize it and make it seem like this is just garden variety diplomacy. And she said something like, this isn't new. Somebody behind the scenes told her that he's been thinking about this for a long time, and he's just using this to get a better deal on trade. And it's like, there's like a million things you could do other than saying you want to take over a country to get a better trade deal. That's not what this is.
This is a normalization and a sanitization of a crazy person. This guy doesn't have a lot of intellect. And there's something that somebody said to me that really made sense. And that is, let's get to the point. This guy is a figurehead, and there are a lot of people that are working through him. We have Vivek Ramaswamy working through him. We have Elon Musk working through him. Let's remember, Elon Musk didn't stop that bill because it was too expensive. He stopped that bill to get some favors for his factory in China. Bingo. And let's remember that he builds this guy that is talking about America and let's build up America and the American worker and they're for the popular, they're the populace. This guy is out there screwing the American worker as he builds his cars, his electric cars, not in the United States. And you know who actually kind of sold him out a bit? Laura Loomer.
So, and for people who don't remember her, I'd never heard of her until this was back when I was still using what was then Twitter. And I guess she had gotten suspended for, some anti-Muslim talk or just something crazy. And she chained herself to the front door of the Twitter headquarters. I'm not sure what that was supposed to accomplish, but that's kind of how she got in my memory. And what's crazy about what happened in the last 36 hours, I guess, is that she's actually making sense. That's what's so crazy. I mean, what she did was and I don't know what the catalyst for this was, but she was basically on Twitter saying, hey, wait a minute. Why are we letting this guy so close to Trump? This got all these conflicts. He's connected to China, just like you were saying a second ago. And basically, she says, and I wish I could quote it, but Elon reacted to her saying, don't pay her any attention. She's just trying to get some attention. And she said, look, Elon, everybody knows you've been MAGA for 5 minutes. She literally said that. And then she said, you put a bunch of money in and you think you done bought you a president. And when I read that, I was like, okay,
wow,
this is getting
it's
ready
so
to
true.
Yeah, first of all, it's true. Second of all, she's on his platform saying this to him. And it wasn't 5 minutes later, the next thing you know, she lost her blue check mark, which I think she paid for that.
Exactly.
You have to pay to have that. Well, he took her check mark away.
Well, community, they can say she violated community guidelines. That would be the byline.
And the next thing you know, she's suspended. And then I saw her on, and these are what's so surreal about it, Egberto, is these are not things that I normally. This is not content I normally consume. So I'm looking at a clip from Steve Bannon's War Room, I think it was.
Oh, God, he's mad,
And she's called in, and he totally has lost control of her. And you can see him trying to figure out how do I rein this in, because she's gone totally off script, and she sounds like a Democrat. Because she started talking about the confirmation process. She started, saying, hey, this guy isn't even an officer. Just, all things that we basically been saying.
let me tell you sort of the genesis of this thing, okay? There's this thing called the H1B H1B visas, I think it's called, and where you bring in a certain, I think right now it's at 65,000 engineers, technical skilled workers is what they call them, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about it is, what they're saying is, we elected you guys to be anti-immigrant, and here you are, the guys from Silicon Valley, now talking about HB1 visas that are H1B, whichever one it is, HB1 visa.
HB1, I think.
Yeah,
I may
visa,
have it backwards.
Right. They want to increase the amount. Yes. When there are skilled workers in the United States that are not there. But here's what was the kicker. After Ramaswamy pretty much told MAGA, I am sorry, it's a cultural reason why we're bringing these people in. Yes. You Americans don't have the discipline or the motivation to be engineers. I mean, I'm paraphrasing.
Let's put a finer point on it. He said, basically, we're too dumb. We're not. Yeah. We're too lazy.
That's like what he said.
I think he said something about Saved by the Bell and something else. And
yes, you want to go and entertain.
We're just not serious as a country.
No.
And he was talking about all Americans.
Exactly. He did. And the truth of the matter is, he didn't quite say that the liberals are that way, because I mean, even if we were saying the liberals are that way, or the progressives are that way, what he could have actually said is, well, but we just don't have enough of. That's not what he said. He said it was a cult. In effect, he downed the American culture. And here's the funny thing that Ramaswamy doesn't understand, being in his position where he thought he had, and to my white brothers and sisters listening, this is not the race card I'm playing here. This is the real card I'm playing here. And it goes as follows. He thought that because of his stance with Trump, he had a certain degree of a proximity to whiteness that absolved him from absolved him and allowed him to be critical of the powers that be. And that is an important thing that I think he's going to learn quickly. Once he did that, the patriarchy came at him. And let me tell you, let me tell you this before we come in, Marlon, because, you know, like I say all of the time, when I talk about white supremacy and all that sort of stuff, I always tell my white brothers and sisters, white supremacy is against you too. And it's not it's a tool. It is a tool. There ain't no race. It's a tool. These kinds of things are used as tools. A lot of folks don't understand that these tools are used to affect all of us, making all of us indentured servants in some form. And in effect,
it's like her name escapes me. It'll come to me in a second. The woman who wrote the book Caste, and
yes, I know exactly who you mean.
Yes, of Other Sons.
Yes,
and that's what she talks about. I saw a really interesting clip, because it's not, if you really think about it, the sort of the line is that we're supposed to be, and we're going back to slavery now, subhuman, whatever. And she said, well, if that was the case, why on earth would you let a subhuman person breastfeed your baby? Take care of your children. And I was like, ooh.
Wilkerson, Dr. Mary Marshall, thank you so kindly.
Yes,
Wilkerson.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Dr. Mary, how you doing? I knew.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's in our writers collective, so she knows. Isabella Wilkerson, I think it is.
Wilkerson. It's amazing because when I'm on KPFT, I'm trying to explain that, because sometimes I'll have white callers call in and tell me, like, Berta, you are playing the race card, and I'm like, no, I'm playing our card. Our card. Let's not let these people use these mechanisms to divide us. And that's what Ramaswamy thought. Ramaswamy thought he had the tool with which he could bang folks was, and he learned a quick lesson, because a whole lot of people came out against him and said, what are you saying about us. Why don't you go back to India where people live like dogs? That's what
Oh, I know, man. It
I
was
mean.
really, it really got,
It got very racial rather quickly,
yeah.
and from
And
the
it
MAGA
wasn't just
side
him. There
towards
was
him.
another fellow. I just happened to see some screenshots, because I just really don't use Twitter unless I have
Mhm.
to search something because the
Right.
search engine is still pretty good. But it was an Indian person that, PhD and all of these different, acronyms after his name or abbreviations. And he said something like, oh, what he did was he just listed all of the different U.S. corporations where the CEO was from India,
Mm-hmm.
and there
Oh
were
boy.
maybe 10 of them.
Right.
And oh my gosh, the next thing you know, it just came down on him, and it just nothing but racism and just hate and just all of that. And I think there's going to be it's the old leopards eating people's faces thing.
Oh yeah.
There are a whole lot of people, and they're like, where'd that leopard come from? I didn't think he was coming after me. Well, they're getting ready to find out, I think.
But you know what is also interesting, Senior Journeyman, and this is, and I think people have to going to get now that they've opened the door. Mr. Musk was once an undocumented person in this country.
He was.
And of course, yes, his brother ratted him out and pretty much said it. They, at some point in their lifespan here in the United States, they were undocumented in this country. Secondly, Ramaswamy, who wanted to be president and his father being over here
Right.
for such a long time, still didn't feel the necessity to become an American. Hey, that's a choice. What you're living here,
Oh, yeah.
but that's a choice, right? But at the same time, you want to sing glory, 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 hallelujah. You put the people down and because of who you think you are or the disdain that you have for the American. Look, you've heard a certain group of foreigners do that all the time. They come and they make their fortune in America, but they pretty much put down the American folks as opposed to realizing that no matter what you think about America, it gave you the platform to be what we are. I mean, you can look, I'm negative in a lot of the things that I talk about with healthcare and with slavery, racism, and all of that kind of stuff. But the mosaic that is America, I'm here, aren't I?
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
from another country and I'm here. I'm not leaving.
Someone pointed
I'm
out
here.
something today, and so are we. I mean, and we've certainly had, as have many people, the conversation about, wonder what Italy might be like right about now, or Costa Rica or wherever. And you're not doing that well right now. I mean, you think about it. You got Brexit, you got Germany's government, you got France that just flipped or collapsed or whatever. So yes, and so this is not necessarily something we can really run away from. I mean, that doesn't mean you got to stay, but Italy's got a right-wing government,
right?
So what do you do?
Yeah, but my thing is, I have some, in my opinion, have some respect for. Look, I will talk. I'm an American. I'm a naturalized American citizen of Panamanian descent. I give Bush a hard time having invaded Panama and doing the wrong things over there. But have some respect for where you live and where you're from. They're not mutually exclusive. But what Ramaswamy did was pretty much said to Americans, you people are XYZ. And last I remembered, Marlon Weems is still a member of the American population. And I don't think he's a loafer. And I don't think he's a sluffer. And I actually think he has something up in his brain. So
I hope so.
For somebody to make that comment,
it was a really, but as bad as that was, Elon came in to sort of back him up.
Oh,
and
God.
He really, in my opinion, that was really worse because he made a comment and he just kind of went there and said something like, there are these differences that are very obvious. And the example that he chose to use was the NBA.
Oh, my God. Yes.
And essentially said, these are obvious differences. Like, these black people can, they can dunk, but, on the intellectual side, not really. And, we just have to accept that. And I was like, I mean, he knows we can read this stuff, right?
Well, he doesn't. The guy's from apartheid South Africa, brother.
As are many of them. So you think about who's around Trump. You got Peter Thiel.
Yes.
You got Elon. There are a couple of other, tech guys that all trace back at some point to South Africa. Look, I'm not going to paint with the broad brush, but they keep opening their mouths telling us what they think. So I don't know what else we're supposed to do. And this isn't the first time that Elon has been elevating these people on Twitter that are talking about eugenics and this fake science that's supposed to mean, basically say that, you and I, maybe there's something, our brains are a little bit smaller. I don't know what the science is supposed to be.
They've read the bell curve too literally. That's the problem. They read that book too literally, because that book is such a flawed book as far as what they like to talk about, the level of intelligence of different groups, etc. It's the most insidious and ridiculous concept. In fact, the reason it makes it so stupid is that the thing that makes us different in race has very little to do with brains and organs and all that kind of stuff.
When you really get down to it, race is made up.
Yeah, exactly.
Race is made up.
Exactly.
I 3 or 4 years ago, my family gave me a subscription to Ancestry DNA.
Yeah.
And I kind of wrestled with it. Do I really want to give these folks my DNA? And at some point I said, you know what, if the government wants my DNA, they're going to get it.
They can get it, yes.
They may already have it. Some of the stuff that I did in college, I'm probably on the radar screen. So anyway, I sent it in, and, you get back, I got the reading that, and it was surprising to me because I'm seeing Scottish, and I'm seeing Swedish, and I'm seeing, of course, West Africa, which you would think, Cameroon, Nigeria. But I'm like, so what does that mean? Does the one drop rule apply the other way? Can I say
no? The one drop rule doesn't apply the other way. I'm sorry, Mr. Weems. I'm sorry, but the one drop rule doesn't apply the other way, because I can see you. And
what though? See, I saw a clip of George Carlin, and folks, if you follow me on Notes, I post a lot of these little videos. In fact, somewhere in my timeline is the thing about Elon Musk and how he elevates all this junk science. But George Carlin was talking about just the stupidity of race. And he said, I've never really seen an actual black person. I've seen some people that are light brown and different shades of brown. And he says, but now on the other hand, these people in India are blacker than any black person I've ever seen, but they're white.
Yes.
So help. I don't understand what's going on. And so, like, what about these white guys in South Africa? Are they African American?
They are. Actually, they are.
I mean, yeah, but you think that's what they're going to put when they have to check a box? Oh, no.
Wait. If they want to get into Harvard, they may do that. Okay. But oh my God! But Trump's Supreme Court got rid of that. That doesn't work anymore.
No, it does not.
But look. I was shocked when I saw I did a 23andMe and was shocked as well. But you know what? I did that I think I did that to prove a point, and I think the point was proving how stupid this racial thing really is, right? A lot of people like to expand on it, and the problem about it is, since we're structured around it, what Ramaswamy did taught him a lesson
He
about
learned a lesson that we learned a long time ago.
Right. When you have this social construct that you use, it really proves a point. But anyway, going back to the immigration issue again, I think what Americans are going to find out is this: the immigrations that we really, really need, which are the people who are willing to come out here and do a lot of work that Americans don't want to do, is what Trump talking about getting rid of, right? They're the ones that will harm our economy and the jobs that they're talking about, engineers and scientists, etc. We have those. But Loomis said the right thing. The reason they want to import them on those H-1B visas, is because the foreign engineer is cheaper. So even that they want to undercount, and it's just screwing the middle class as they've always done. You're getting rid of the laborer, and the reason they're not going to look. This is a bribing scheme. Let me tell you something that a lot of folks aren't getting. This entire immigration thing is a scheme. One, it's there for him to pay a whole lot of his friends monies to create concentration camps and holding tanks and give people work to store some of these guys while they decide what they're going to do with them. That's number one. So it makes money for the prison industrial complex, or the appendage of the prison industrial complex. And the second item that they're trying to do is they say, wait a minute, those farmers in California, in the whatever valley, I don't remember what the valley is called, they're going to now be enticed to donate to those in power, Donald Trump and the Congress people, so that we can look the other way. We're not going to change our policy to dump these immigrants. We're just going to look the other way as you get your crops picked. Let's not forget what happened in Georgia when we had all the peaches rotten on the floor. Let's not forget what happened in Arizona when we had all the watermelons and all these things rotten on the vine. Mm-hmm. They remember that. And they know they can pay these guys off to turn turn the eye. So it's going to be a win-win. But the people that are going to get hurt is all those Americans who went to MIT and North Carolina and the University of Texas and paid all this money to get their masters and their PhDs or their BSMEs, etc. And they're going to be replaced by
cheaper labor.
Cheaper labor.
So I'm just looking at Carol Q, and she's right on the money. I actually wrote about what you just mentioned with regard to the prison industrial complex, because if you recall, and I think I published it maybe, I don't know, a month ago. And what I looked at was after Tom Homan, the border czar, was announced, and the prison stocks just went, whoop, I mean, straight up. And you had CEOs getting on their earnings calls talking about, we're anticipating revenue up 30, 40%.
There you go.
And because they're counting on all because what's going to happen, I think, Egberto, is, these people are going to get detained, but it's not easy. You just don't get to throw these detainees just in any country you decide.
The country would have to accept them, Marlon. The country has to accept them, and most countries say they're not.
And so what does that leave? That leaves them just languishing in these private prisons who can loan them out for cheap labor. So they may end up doing the same doggone jobs they were doing to begin with, maybe in a different state, for less money, or perhaps no money.
And you know what? And at the same, so these guys will be pulling money in both directions, pulling money to house them, to feed them. And at the same time, they make money renting them out for labor. It's a way, again,
dude,
this entire thing is a racket.
I think you said it right. It's a scheme. It is definitely a scheme.
And you know what? The MAGA folks, guess who doesn't profit from it? The MAGA folks who want this to happen are going to pay the price because their grocery bills are going to increase. The women in certain neighborhoods that have been using these folks to take care of their kids or do their lawns or build their homes, that's going to be reduced. So who pays the bill? All of us, except the Ramaswamis and all these other guys.
Well, the very people that put him in office are the ones that are going to suffer the most from this. And it is just a phenomenon, man. I have tried my best to understand it. I know people. I mean, look where I live. I mean, and same with you, I'm sure. I just know
red Texas in a red community.
There are a few people of my persuasion here, and we seek each other out. But you have to be able to interact with these folks, and it's just a mystery to me how, I mean, and I mean, I know a lot of people that otherwise seem intelligent. I know people that are very religious, and I'm trying to figure out. So, what's the workaround that you're using to ignore just the hate and the behavior and just straight up racism? And then you want to be
I
my
get it.
friend, and you
I
want
get it.
to, you want to have a conversation and talk about, just garden variety stuff. But I'm looking at you going, but dude, you look what look what your character is telling me about you.
Well, let me tell you, Marlon, and I wrote about this in my book Tribulations of an Afro-Latino Caribbean Man, and in this one called It's Worth It: How to Talk to Right Wing Relative Friends and Labor. And it goes like this. Most people are good people, and I get into trouble every time I say most people are good people, because people are like, how can they be good and do these things? Also, good people have a tendency to follow leadership. And if you have bad leadership, a lot of times you do bad things. But the other thing is carnality. Once you have equated that there is something to whiteness, once you've equated that has some intrinsic value, and I don't care if you are somebody that sweep floors or otherwise, and
or not even white,
right. And you start to, but remember what I spoke about earlier, proximity too. In other words, I am not, but if I hang on to you, maybe I can get the same benefits that you do as well. So there's this thing about this carnality where you start to feel like, and it's an animal in us, right? You start to feel like there's something that these other people are taking away. And suddenly rationality goes away, right? And survival takes over. That's why if you take a look at the polls, and I studied these numbers over and over. I studied North Carolina, I studied Wisconsin, I studied Michigan, how Kamala Harris could lose in those areas where the Democrats outperformed her by a bunch. And that is the answer. I mean, you take a look and you ask people create plausibility so that what they're doing doesn't seem like it had gender or racist reasons. The economy, XYZ, when we had a record economy spending in for Christmas, but the economy is bad. There's nothing that changed in the economy over the last year what
is it exactly that Trump ever said he was going to do to improve the economy? I mean, other than just saying we're going to make it better. I mean, but what was there was no plan. There was no. I mean, when you think about it, and you just go through some of the prescriptions that she was coming with. I mean, dude, as a person that just bought a little small business,
right,
a grant or even a forgivable loan, like she was talking about, would have been tremendous. And
exactly,
there are people that voted for Trump that would have benefited from something like that, or child tax credits, actually, I'm going to try to find it. I actually wrote down a rather long. I did literally like a transcript of it of Isabel Wilkerson. This was before the election, and she was talking to Lawrence O'Donnell.
I saw that interview,
and
it was powerful.
He asked her, "How is this? This, and you just go through the resume, take what she looks like out of it. How is it when you just laid that resume down next to the Trump resume? How is this close?" And she gave an answer, and I won't go through the whole thing, but in a nutshell, she said, sometimes that proximity to whiteness for some people is more important than something that may very well be in their benefit. And they're willing to go in that direction to the detriment of the country, to the detriment of themselves, because they don't want to lose that status. And she said it a whole lot more eloquently, and I'll dig it up. And
I think I wrote about that. If I'm not mistaken, I think I have a Substack out on that one. But it's interesting because this is a case because women went out there and they voted for their bodily rights, but at the same time they voted for the guy who has vowed to take
them away. It's the most counterintuitive thing I've ever seen in my life.
And again, when they talk about uneducated people, mostly are the ones who voted for Trump. Educated mostly. I mean, that is somewhat true. But I tell you what, I know a lot of educated, and I me, I get into a Starbucks.
What's the percentage of white men and white women that voted for Trump? It's pretty high.
Yes.
Democrats never really get the white vote, not since I think Lyndon Johnson, really. Yeah. So it's probably going to be, I'm just spitball, 70, almost 80% of white men are going to vote Republican.
Right.
And white women, I'm not sure. I know it was a lot. I don't think it was quite that high though, but still.
I refuse to, the Democratic Party pretty much cede that space. And I think they cede it just assuming people are stupid. And I read, as opposed to saying, let's educate, they go with how people are reared. And I think there is much to saying, I think a democracy requires educated people. You can't have a democracy. I gave an example on my program today that said if we have 10 bushel of corn and we feed people with 9 bushel of corns and people are still hungry, some folks are going to say, no matter what, let's go for that 10th bushel. And you say, no, we got to keep that to plant for the next season so we can have bushels of corn again. The educated person understands that. The uneducated person thinks, I'm still hungry. I want that. It's there now. And, it is. And when I say educated, for those that are listening, I'm not talking college degree and all that kind of stuff. No. I'm just talking about being aware, to put it bluntly, being woke.
You know something, and I'm not saying the pandemic was good, but in my case, when the pandemic occurred, one of my my 2 youngest, rather, one was in high school and the other one was in middle school. And so essentially for that 18-month, 2-year period, we were homeschooling them. I mean, they were doing the online stuff, but it was on us to kind of, be the teacher, right? And make sure, fortunately for me, I've got 2 really, smart kids, and they stayed on top of what they needed to do. But even with that, I would have conversations with them about what they were studying. And dude, I was blown away. They had no idea what the Electoral College was. Just civics stuff. That 7th grade civics, that's what it was for us. They're not getting that at all. This is like everything was a worksheet, and you do the worksheet, and you get an A if you knew. It was really troubling.
It is sad. We don't teach civics anymore, and I think it's by design, because if Americans knew that we are actually already empowered to do quite a bit, we would act. And the thing about it is they don't want the populace acting. They want the people in power acting. And that's exactly why they're up against critical thinking, up against books, up against liberation, up against the independence of women. All these things are a threat to what they believe in, the power of the few. And until we pay teachers better, you're so right, my dear friend. Teachers are, by the way, for who said that? Let me just tell you something. If you look at my writings, I consider teachers the most important profession, bar none, as they are the ones moving knowledge forward. Absolutely. Whether you're teaching physics, whether you're teaching economics, whether you're teaching jet propulsion, teachers are the most important profession bar none. And I revere. Back in Panama, our teachers, when you saw a teacher in a grocery store or somewhere, you stood
carry
up.
those groceries,
Great.
man.
You did every, you showed that, I have to be at my best. This is a teacher. Over here,
listen, Egberto, my first grade teacher, Miss Roundtree, I stayed in touch with this lady on through elementary, high school, into college. Whenever I would come home, I always dropped by, checked on her, and I come from a family of educators, and in fact, in my writing, I have one of my aunts in particular was. She was one of the first Black women, or Black African Americans, period, to graduate from the University of Arkansas. And so she ended up being one of the first Black principals, if not in Arkansas, certainly in the Little Rock area. And one of my uncles was also a principal. So I grew up around that. And so the idea of just sort of, well, these guys are in one breath talking about America doesn't have enough talent to work in Silicon Valley. At the same time, they're talking about getting rid of the Department of Education.
What gives?
I'm sorry, what?
What gives? What gives?
So that lets you know right there.
But Marlon is coming up on that time. Actually, I think we're a little bit past that half hour time. So why don't we kind of close this up and tell those folks that are listening to us, thank you so kindly for spending this time with us. And
absolutely,
as we discuss some of these issues, actually pretty important issues. But close her out for me, Marlon.
Well, we've covered a lot, but I think what we've really, I really don't think the people on here probably don't fall into this category, or they wouldn't be paying attention to what we're saying. But I do not think folks are ready. The people that I talk to on the street, and as I said, they are mostly people that voted for Trump. I don't know what they think is about to happen, but I really feel like it's going to hurt them a lot more than it is most of us.
There's no doubt. There's actually no doubt that based on the policies that he's wanting to come out, I mean, the fact of the matter is his audience, the people who vote for him on the socioeconomic ladder, the policies that they're talking about with all these cuts will harm them immensely. And there will be nobody else to blame but themselves.
And I can tell you, a lot of folks on our side of the fence are tired of marching, tired of trying to explain and tell these folks. And I heard a guy a few weeks ago, in essence, he said, you know what? When you put this guy back after everything that we saw him try to do, and the stuff he was able to do, maybe it's time to find out, just for America to see just what they have allowed to happen. And maybe that'll wake folks up. I hope so.
We can only hope. Like I said, also, though, I'm glad for what you are doing with your platform.
Thank you.
Which is educating, and we'll continue to do this. And I hope we'll have the pleasure of doing these chats every so often, because I think we've gotten some people that have made very good commentary on this. So I want to thank you, Marlon, for inviting in this communication here. And let's do this again.
Absolutely. We're going to need each other because the water's getting ready to get bumpy.
Yeah. Well, look, you have a great rest of your night, my brother.
You too, Egberto.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please.